Now, this is the most beautiful part of the spiritual journey, that the connection of the soul with its totality, our connection with our ultimate creator, has never been broken, even when we are here. When you put on a cover, it doesn't break your connection. The connection is inward and is always there. We are always connected. Now, there must be something, some evidence to show how we are connected. So the evidence is that when we are feeling we are a self, no matter in what form, it is the same self. It never changes. You are looking at this world can change, but the one that is looking at the world never changes. You go to sleep and have a dream. In the dream you move around. Who is the person who moves around the dream? Have you ever noticed? The same person who was awake, not a different person. In a dream you don't see some other self of yours moving around. It's the same self that's in the wakeful state. It's the same self in the higher state. The self never changes. But there is something more than that. It is not only that the self is continuously connected, there's other evidence for that. And that is, there is something emanating from the self. Something that's visible. If there was no experience, the self could experience itself. And what is that? That's the main subject of my talk to you today. That what is that which emanates from the self and exists if nothing else existed but the self? If there was no creation whatsoever, the manifestation of self to itself, what would that be? That we have no words to describe it. My lecture ends because I have no words to describe it. But the truth is that because we have no words to describe it, we have called it the word. Because we have no Shabad to describe it, we call it the Shabad. Because we have no sound to describe it, we call it the Naad. We call it the music. We call it something, and there is no word we can use it. But for want of words, we are using the word. In the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God. And the Word was God. Remember that, John's Gospel. Remember the opening verses of the Rig Veda, where it says the Naad created this universe. And the Naad was the creator. These are almost translations from one language to another. When you see that we have no words for it, but that eminence, that radiation, that something coming out of the self that can be experienced by the self, that never is lost. Not even till now, not even if we wear all the costumes of the world. That power within, the power of consciousness that never leaves us, we can experience it. After all, we the experiencer are the self, and the self is emanating something. We should be able to experience it ourselves. It appears in different forms that emanates from us, what radiates from us. Right here in the physical plane, it appears when we pull our attention inside to the self. The very self I was talking about in the beginning, that you close your eyes and feel that you are sitting inside, that very self is generating that kind of eminence in the form of a sound, which we can hear. It's audible. That's very great. If the self can be heard, what else do you want? You just hear and you are to the self. It's much easier than trying to use all kind of imagination and trying to figure out where the self is. If the self can be heard, is audible, then you hear and you are towards yourself. This audible self, the audible sound that you can hear, is coming from the self. So, a good way, the best way of meditation that I have found to discover the self is to listen to the sound of the self. And listen to this with the same intensity of concentration. With the same concentration, it draws you to yourself and opens up all these experiences that I have been talking about. If you stay on with that sound, which keeps on changing because of the nature of the universe in which we are doing it, because nature of the creation that we are operating through, if you stay on with the sound, it will take you all the way to your true home, because it is totally connected all the time, like the self is connected. That is why we know a way a good way, a good route to our true home. And that is by way of attaching ourselves what looks like an ordinary sound here, but continues to change, ultimately it becomes the whole power of consciousness at the end. It's the same sound. We call it sound because it's sound here. It is not always sound all the way. It can't be sound where there is no space and time. It can't be sound like we know it here. But to start with, it's good to know it as a sound. But when you ride on it, when you're pulled by it, it has a pull that nothing else has. Nothing can pull you faster towards your true home than the sound. Sound has some other characteristics also. I'll mention to you the other characteristics of the sound. But first thing is, if we can hear that sound, when can we hear it? When you are able to, by your imagination, by your method of concentrating your attention behind the eyes, when you can sufficiently concentrate that you are beginning to get unaware of this body, the sound can be heard. In fact, sounds can be heard, several sounds can be heard even before that, which are not the sound of the self. They are sounds surrounding the self. And those sounds can also be used to help you to put your attention within. I call them practice sounds. There are several practice sounds coming from right or left or above or below, and you can play with them. You can play with those sounds and say, okay, that's only helping me to concentrate, being in there, being inside with those sounds, just like I'm being inside with watching things around me, just a practice to go there. But ultimately, when the sound that has pull comes, it has a resemblance to a sound outside. The first sound is a very melodious sound. It's a melody, and it comes in the form of some bells ringing at a distance. It looks like some bells ringing at a distance, but they don't have any sharp hit like we hit the bell here. That's missing, but the rest is like bell song. It's got a rhythm in it, but similar to bell song. It can also be referred to some different kind of songs, sounds and songs that we hear, but it's very melodious. It is very subtle. That sound has a pull in it. When you put your attention to listen to the sound, it pulls you. And that's a secret. The secret of the sound is it can pull you. You don't have to put an effort to go to it. The effort is now shifted to the sound, and it can pull you in. That is why this particular kind of yoga, the particular kind of method of union with yourself, which is called yoga, the particular method is called the Surt Shabd Yoga. Surt means attention, Shabd means the sound. Yoga means union with your own self. So the putting your attention on the sound to lead you to your true home is, I think, the best thing I have discovered. If there's something better, I am willing to learn even today. I've tried out a lot of things to get some higher awareness, but this is the best that has served me. And